Hi everyone. Obviously I update the blog as often as I can, and pretty much any time I do anything on the car I update the blog, but some people prefer video and audio to text. So I'm just doing a bit of an update on where I'm at with Project DeLorean. And I'm also going to talk about some of my tools and bits and pieces in my work area. So you can see, I'm not too sure about in the last video whether I'd had the intake manifold off or not, but that's off obviously, and so are the exhaust manifolds. So we look up under there, should be able to see, it's a bit dark, but you can see the sides of the block, and the same on the other side. Up under there. And you'll also notice the catalytic converter is gone, the heat shield's gone, and the muffler's gone. Sorry about shaky cam, I'm by myself today, so... getting the exhaust manifolds off wasn't as big a job as I thought. So this side came off really easily. Just had to make use of a few ratchet extensions and the universal joint. This side was a little bit more difficult. Obviously the catalytic converter and a few things were in the way, so I had to get that out of the way, the lambda sensor and a few things like that. But all the details step by step are on the blog, so if you want to read about that, it's on there. But the biggest thing, and I know I've said it before, is the lack of space. Just trying to get in there and get stuff done is so difficult, as you can see down there. Now if I put my hand in there, if I can reach, that's the frame, that's the block. There's not a lot of room in there, and when you've got the catalytic converter in there as well. But we got there eventually. I fixed the issue with the pulley rubbing on the belt, and that was just a simple case of taking the top idler pulley out and discarding it pretty much, and just using the bottom one and then tensioning the pulley. I actually only bought one new pulley, because the bottom pulley, when I first put this in, the bottom pulley looked okay, so I just bought a new top pulley, but then I realised that the bottom pulley wasn't as in good condition as I thought, and that actually worked out because I only need one. So I just used the new one on the bottom and discarded the top one, and that's resolved that issue with the rubbing. If you've been following the blog, you would have noticed, you would have seen that rusty pipe was in here, so that's now been taken out, and this rubber hose here goes from the pump, which is here, so this is the water pump here, all the way along down there. You can see the nice new vacuum hoses as well, but it goes down there, and then if we go along the side of the car, I'll try and take this slowly so you don't get seasick. We go up under the wheel, and you can see that's the main radiator pipe. If we go up a little bit, and there was a panel covering this, we can see the pipes up in there. So this is the one I replaced, and it's a little bit dark, can't really see, but it goes onto a steel pipe there. So a simple job like that you wouldn't think would take too long. That took me about 3 days. Getting the pipe out was a mission. Getting the panel off that covered the pipe under the car was a mission. Getting the new pipe in was a mission. So these cars are not the easiest to work on, that's for sure. But it's like the dog's always saying, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Doing a few tidy up things while the intake manifold's off. As I showed you before, I've done the vacuum hoses, and those are plumbed in as far as I can for now. The main thing is just doing everything under the manifold before it goes back on. I did have to take if it's going to focus, I had to take a temperature sensor out of here. I hate phones, they just do not focus. To make room for, there we go, for manoeuvring the pipe. And obviously when I did that, a lot of water came out and flooded the Valley of Death. And the camera's not doing it justice. It looks rusty, but it's not. The Valley of Death down here is actually quite clean. This brown stuff that you're seeing is just leaves and grossness. We vacuumed it out as best we could, but what I'm going to do is wait for it to dry again. I've been soaking it up with paper towels, hence why that's there. Let it dry out as much as I can, and then I'm going to get an air compressor. I'm going to borrow one and blow all that out, get it nice and clean. And DMC Texas are currently working their way through my next order, which includes all the gaskets for both intake manifold, exhaust manifolds, new wiring loom, new clutch, muster and slave cylinders, so on and so forth. So pretty much everything I think I'm going to need to get this car running and driving is in my next order, so that's pretty exciting. Another thing I did find while I was doing the vacuum hoses is the vacuum solenoid down here. The pipes, or one of the pipes, is snapped off. So I've ordered a new solenoid and I need to follow that and see where that goes, but I can worry about that later. So that's pretty much where I'm at with the engine. I've also zip tied the front wiring loom, so that's nice and done. And it's pretty much just a case of doing little tidy up jobs now until my parts arrive, and then I can start putting the engine back together. So I mean, the biggest thing I'm really looking forward to is that wiring loom, because this just is atrocious. I'm going to replace obviously the main loom, but any of the other wiring that's not part of that loom I'm going to replace. The tail light loom is actually incredibly expensive. For some reason it's actually the dearest loom in the entire car, and as it's not that complex, I'm just going to repair that one myself rather than order a new loom. Those are all the nice new injection lines. So it's been a busy week. I've got a lot accomplished, and that's pretty much it for the update. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my work area. So if you're not interested in that, you might want to stop the video now. I had a big tidy up of my work area. Normally I have the main door open behind me, but at the moment it's really windy, so I've closed that today, and so it's a little bit cramped, so if you'll excuse that. A few Christmas gifts I got was that creepy board, as I call it. Makes things a lot easier when you're crawling around under the car. And also this tool chest. Surprisingly enough, tool chests actually, I always thought it'd be kind of cool to have one, but it's actually incredibly useful because obviously it's on wheels, and I think it saved me a lot of time in fumbling around looking for stuff because I've got everything ordered nicely. So in this top level, we've got gloves, nice spanner set, the stubby spanner set, a few miscellaneous things like a paint pen. Very good purchase. I use this a lot for marking things. Box cutter knives. That's the D-clamp from the exhaust. I'm just keeping that so I know the size, so I can get another one. Hacksaw blade, pokey stick, good for poking. My dad actually turned that on the lathe. Some slightly more heavy duty gloves, and then everything's just in nice little order. This is the nut splitter. I've used this a lot. This was actually one of the best purchases, and definitely one I'd recommend for anyone restoring an old car where you've got rusty nuts or nuts that you just can't get onto. It's not easy, it takes a bit of effort, it takes a bit of elbow grease and a bit of manoeuvring to hold it on the nut while you do it, but it's certainly made some jobs a bit easier. Then we've got various Allen keys and crescents and miscellaneous spanners, zip ties, all different sizes, lots of screwdrivers. Can never have too many screwdrivers. Hammers. This is all my socket sets. So I've got, don't buy these. I bought this one thinking that it would be really useful for getting into tight spots. As you can see, it's quite small in my hand. But the way it works, if you can see in there, which you probably can't very well because phones don't like to focus. Here we go, a different background. It was just about to focus then. The way it works is there's a little arm here which goes into a ratchet in there. And the problem is, I might upload a photo of it perhaps. There we go. as you can see, the ratchet in there has become chewed just from putting pressure on it, and now it just skids, so that arm no longer interlocks into the ratchet. So as soon as you put any pressure on it, it just slips. But it was cheap, and I do keep it around because it's okay for really light pressure, but as soon as you put any weight on it, it just skids. I've got my small socket set. This was actually, I think, one of the first socket sets I ever owned. You can see I tested the paint pen. Great for reasonable sized jobs. It's actually done surprisingly well. I don't know how expensive it was. I think it may have been a gift. I've had it for a long time. But it does a good job. Surprisingly good. The only complaint is when you're using this for the smaller sockets. This has a habit of, if we put that there, and we'll stick one of these on it. So you've got that in there, that's clipped on. What happens with monotonous regularity is this will slip out of this, or it'll fall off the ratchet and these two will come apart and you end up chasing them. So what I do if I'm doing a long job, like when I was doing the exhaust manifold studs and it kept falling off, was I just used insulation tape because it was handy, and I insulation taped the whole thing and that fixed it. So a bit of a mission getting it off, but it worked. And this was a gift from my stepfather-in-law, the old oil filter removal tool, really handy. I was doing a service on my fiance's car and just could not get the filter off. And next drawer down, this is my electrical and or soldering drawer. So anything electrical related, so I've got multimeter, different connectors, solder station, earth testing, screwdriver, soldering iron. That's a spare filter for the DeLorean, which was donated, which was very appreciated. And that's my endoscope that I've used in a few videos. And then bigger things, drills, CRC penetrate. I go through a lot of this. And then down in the big cupboard I have my spanners, sockets, big socket set, and on the side I've got my work lamp and safety gear. So pretty much everything I use is in there, and I can just wheel it around wherever I'm working on the car. It makes a massive difference. And then at any one time I usually have a drawer, just because they're nice and sturdy. That's where all the parts go that I'm working on at the moment. So as you can see, this is the catalytic converter, manifolds, manifold bracket. Sorry, I think that's a muffler bracket. Spare parts. So this is leftover heater hose from the heater job, and other various bits and pieces, an idle motor, and this is that rusted pipe I took out, which even has holes in it, so I'm glad I did take it out now. So it makes a really big difference having things tidy. We spend a lot less time looking for tools. And if we go around to the front of the car, this is my new parts box, apart from this wiring loom obviously. I think this is the tail light loom. So anything that I've ordered from DMC that I have yet to install in the car lives in here. As you can see, there's not a lot in the way of new stuff. There's a couple of things. So I've got some hose clamps, I think that was for the fuel system. And in here somewhere, that's the broken pivot bolt out of the bell crank. And this should be, I think, oh, it's even got the name on it, look at that. I think, there it is, that's the new pivot bolt. So that's pretty much all that's new in that box, obviously until my new kit arrives. This tray I've shown you before in a previous video. I've just moved it to make room for the AMC. And started thinking about putting all this stuff back together. Fuel pumps in, and that works. Looks really good. Except for, of course, that broken pipe down there. Again, it probably won't focus, but as you can see, when I was installing it, I had a hell of a job getting it to compress into the fuel tank, and this pipe snapped. And so for a temporary workaround while I'm working on getting the engine running, I'm just running the return line into a Coke bottle, and the rag around the top is just to stop fumes, because otherwise the shop stinks. This is cool. When I first started the restoration, you couldn't get these. So this is the grommet that goes into here, which the fuel filter net goes through. And DMC at the time were recommending you use a washer bottle grommet and get it in there. And they say if you use lots of Vaseline and lots of force it fits. But they've just gone back into production making these, so I ordered one of those. That should be going in fairly soon, hopefully, once I decide what I'm going to do about that broken petrol pipe. I'm thinking I'm just going to end up biting the bullet and buying another pump. It's a bit of a shame, but I think it's going to be the easiest way. What I was thinking of doing was plumbing this line back into the fuel tank somehow, because it is only return. So I thought about feeding it back into the delivery pipe that goes in from there, or maybe putting a fitting in this blank. So this is where the sender used to go, and obviously now it's just got a blank because the sender's built into the fuel pump now. And I thought about drilling a hole in that and tapping it and putting some sort of a fitting on there. But I think it's just over-engineering at the end of the day. I think it's just going to be easy to buy a new pump. It's going to be expensive, but that was my mistake. So these parts really haven't changed. They're still sitting there ready to go back in at some stage. And as you can see, I've had a massive tidy up in this shop. Again, mainly to make room for that thing. So over here we have the intake manifold and fuel mixer and anything intake manifold related. There's the fuel filler over the side. Under that is the miscellaneous large parts. So we've got filter, we've got some of the ground effects, the pull straps, just big pieces like that. And up there we've got some of the bigger interior pieces, so those are the door trims with a engine vent on top. And the bonnet's now propped up there, or the hood, as you Americans would probably call it. And then the fascias are sitting down here. So they're waiting for repainting, which is coming up. Once I've got the engine running, the next step will be, well, transmission, but I think I've ordered all the parts I need for the transmission, so after that will be panel beating, painting, anything external related that needs to be done before the fascias go back on. So things like these hinges that are rusty, you can see that, the sun's coming out now. I'll take those off, sand them down, paint them with some nice rust killing paint. And the same for all the headlight mounts all around here. Take all this out, put new screws in, new fittings, new headlights actually. All that sort of stuff I will do before the fascias go back on, obviously. But at that time is when we'll get the fascias painted, and that'll be a nice step forwards as well. And when we do all those little pieces, we'll get all the panel beating done. I have talked to a guy, and I've mentioned this on the blog, about this dent, and he reckons that it won't be too big a deal to get this taken out. Obviously he is a panel beater by trade, and he said the stainless steel shouldn't be too much of an issue. He said as long as you can get to the back of it, which you can, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And the other thing I talked to him about is the engine cover. And just excuse me a moment, it's kind of hard to hold the camera on film. But the engine cover and the louver, obviously I've already pointed this out, it's broken here, it's broken under here, sorry about the cobwebs, and obviously it's broken along the edges as well, so they've put this metal frame in. The panel beater thinks that this will actually be, the plastic welding on this will be harder than the panel beating, which is good, because worst case scenario, I mean it'd be really expensive, but I can just buy a new louver if I need to, and I don't mind that. I have to save up for a while, because it'll probably be about, it won't be too bad, they're about $800 I think, from Texas. So, I mean the parts I've just ordered and I'm just waiting for the shipping quote on, they come to about 1500 US I think, so it's not too bad. Interior, haven't done anything in here at all. That's going to be the last thing I'm going to do is the interior. So the plan is once all the panel work's done, once the painting's done, Then I'll do the bare minimum to the interior to get it legal, so I'll get the doors working properly, door handles, get all the trim and everything back in. And then I can start focusing. By that stage I should be able to get a warrant and rego, so I can then drive it to an upholsterer's and start getting the rest of the work done. So it's been slow going, but I'm very proud of the progress I've made so far. I've owned this car for a year now, just a little bit over a year and a couple of months. And in that time, it looks far worse than when I bought it because obviously all the panels are off. But in that time I've had the engine running. I've got it to a stage where I can now start reassembling the engine, which is great. And now I can start moving on to the things which will make the difference, which is things like the panels. I mean, once the fascias go back on and the bonnet, it's just going to look like a brand new car, even though the interior won't be done. And it's those milestones that I think really keep you going. So thanks very much for watching. I apologise for rambling on a bit, but people apparently do enjoy these videos. I get requests for videos. And as always, just keep checking the blog, because I do update that a lot more often than I do these videos. I kind of find these videos boring myself. I only do them because people have requested them. And yeah, thanks for watching.